Welcome to my show. A guest here. Her name is Janet MC Cornell. Mrs. Janet, how are you doing, ma?
I'm great. Thanks, Temmie.
All
How are
right,
you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much, Mrs. Janet. Firstly, you are a certified fitness coach. Can you please, ma, discuss more about yourself and how you are doing currently now, ma?
Okay, well, I am at a point in my life where I have finished a corporate career and other jobs and all kinds of different capacities. But in the midst of that, I became sick and needed to get healthy. And so I began that journey. And through that journey, I transformed my body and my life and my health. And because of that experience, because it was so powerful, I was compelled to become a personal fitness trainer and spread what I had learned to others. And that's what I've been doing for the last 14 years.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much. Do you also have any book that you have written, and are you also planning to write any book in the coming future, ma'am?
Oh, yes, I do have a book that I published a year or so ago. It is called Elements of Aging Well, My Journey So Far, and it's on Amazon. And I am in the preliminary stages of planning book two to go with it as a companion.
All right. Thank you so much, Mrs. Janet. And I would like to go to the point of cognitive health, ma'am. How do you think strength training contributes to cognitive health, ma'am?
Well, as I began training my clients,
Mm.
because I am in my 60s, I, of course, had clients that I attracted who were in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and early 80s. So I have quite a wide distribution of folks that are just past midlife and beginning to look at their senior years. And so in that situation, I began to find that I had clients with I had one with Parkinson's disease, one with multiple sclerosis, both of which are neurological or neurodegenerative diseases related to the brain, but they manifest differently. And of course, we all know that other diseases related to it are things like dementia, Alzheimer's, Lewy body, all different sorts of, they're kind of all in a big family of cognitive health threats. So, with these clients that had a neurodegenerative disease and were concerned about cognitive health, I began to notice something, and that is we were doing resistance training, lifting weights and using resistance to challenge the skeletal muscles. And they would go to their doctors more regularly than other people because they had a very specific concern on their health. And they would come back to me and say, Janet, we can't, that my doctor just doesn't understand why I'm not getting worse. I'm not getting worse. Like, in other words, the general population of people that have those diseases that their respective doctors would be treating have a certain expectation because these diseases have no known cure at this point. They only have things that help to mitigate the symptoms or to just be able to maybe address some of the health concerns. And I noticed that as they were lifting with me, they were giving me this report, and their doctors didn't understand why they weren't progressing to the same degree in severity of their cohort. And I began to just wonder, I'm not a scientist, but I began to wonder, is this exercising somehow related? And then I started hearing anecdotal reports from different people in the medical field who said, we understand that nutrition, healthy nutrition, and cardiovascular fitness both play into it, but we're starting to find evidence that when you work your bigger skeletal muscles, they have an effect, oddly, on the brain. They seem to slow down the progression of the disease in many of our patients. And I just kind of stored that away and just kind of thought, huh, that's interesting. And then as time progressed, I became more and more curious. So I started digging into the research, and there are a number of neurological studies that have been being conducted and finally have enough longevity to the study to actually report that they can say absolutely definitively that double-blind peer-reviewed research says that strength training promotes neuroplasticity in the brain and helps to create new connections and helps to mitigate the problem of mental clarity and improves focus in the brain because it slightly slows down or reverses that breakdown that happens in the brain as these different neurological diseases take over. So that is how I arrived at this conclusion and am becoming very interested in learning more about it.
Well, that's very interesting, Mrs. Janet. And for people who probably are willing to start this training or this cognitive health, you know, what do you think are the simple ways for beginners to start a strength training routine at home or at the gym?
Oh, that's an excellent question. Well, certainly the exercises as people begin, if they have not been athletic in their life, if they have only done cardio, maybe they're putting a focus on their nutrition and making sure that they're getting a balanced diet and all of those things, then the training for physical strength is definitely a part of that journey. And I know that there's a lot of information out there on the internet, YouTube, and so on, where you can get some ideas and some instruction. I highly recommend, though, that if you have not been a part of that world, that you have somebody train you at least in the beginning so that you don't hurt yourself, so that you're picking the right exercises for what you have going on, whether it's better stability, better balance, better grip strength, being able to walk with a smooth gait, being able to keep your balance so you don't fall, and also just to have the strength to do the things that you want to do in your life, be able to climb stairs, be able to carry your luggage, be able to play with your grandchildren, whatever it might be that gives you joy, that you would train in such a way to make those things possible for as long as you can. But we do know that strength training activates something in the brain called brain-derived neurotropic factor, BDNF, brain-derived neurotropic factor. And this is kind of like a miracle grow for your brain that helps support clarity and focus. So I mostly want to encourage people who are listening to just start to move, start to stretch, start to use resistance training exercises. And if you aren't sure what you're doing, hire an expert, even for a month or two, just to teach you the ropes so that you're doing the exercises properly so that they're helping you. And so you're doing them properly so they don't hurt you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mrs. Janet. And there will also be time. Time really, really is very, very valuable. There will also be, time, someone will start to see the reward that he or she is doing. So, how long does it typically take to notice cognitive benefits from strength training, ma?
Well, I have to say that, yeah, typically is the operative word there because everybody is a little different.
Okay.
Some people come into the process of training earlier or later in their journey with cognitive disease, and for people who have not contracted it as well, where they are just wanting to stay healthy into their old age and keep a sharp mind. It depends on that a lot for how you would start and how you would find cognitive benefits. But I can say overall, there is almost an immediate improvement in mental clarity, just being able to think more clearly. And I think that's because when you exercise, it causes a mind-body connection. So your mind has to think about what you're doing, and your body needs to cooperate with what your mind is intending to do. So there's a conversation between body and mind, and that creates more clarity. There's just a better connection there. It also supports better sleep. So the first things that my own clients report to me in beginning a program is all of a sudden they're sleeping better, they're more tired at the appropriate time and sleep better through the night. Well, right away, that's going to make somebody think more clearly and feel better and be able to make decisions more easily and just have a better mood. So they feel more optimistic. They feel more excited about getting up and facing the day. And some, if they have mild depression, it definitely drops. So that's fairly quickly, like within the first couple of weeks. And then over time, there's long-term benefits like an enhanced memory and focus. And it becomes more noticeable after consistent practice for a few months. So there's specific things that usually happen right away, and then over time, other realizations, other awarenesses come to the surface.
All right. Thank you so much, Mrs. Jeanette. And there will also be different type of exercises that definitely benefit or promote cognitive health. What type of strength training exercise do you think are the best? I don't know if there's anyone that is, but do you think are the best for promoting cognitive health, ma?
Well, I think for the person who has just is just starting to exercise, it's important to start out with moving with body weight. So raising your arms up without, not having to have weights or bands or machines or anything, but just moving the body so that you are strengthening the shoulders, strengthening the spine, breathing deeply. The core becomes engaged so that your abdominal region and your lower back are activating when you stoop down to pick something up or when you're walking. And so a lot of the exercises to start with when I start with someone is to just do body motions. So it's the weight itself is not surprising to the body. It's what the body is used to, but maybe increasing range of motion so that the arms can move more freely, the hips, the legs can move more freely, and you can twist side to side with the spine staying straight. And then getting kind of it's almost like getting reacquainted with your body
Mm.
because of that mind-body connection. And then slowly progress on to light hand weights and stretchy bands where you can do a repetitive motion of what we call progressive overload so that you can take a band and stretch it back over your head 6, 7, 8 times until you start to feel a little fatigue and then switch to something else. So I would start with body weight, where it's just your body moving in a certain pattern, and then switch to light weights, light bands. And then depending on how the person feels and how they are progressing, it's kind of an intuitive decision then to become more intense after that, to up the intensity so that the person continues to grow and progress and get stronger.
Wow, thank you so much, Mrs. Jeanette. And also, some people might be listening and they might be saying, I do not know if I'm qualified for something like this. I am 80. I don't know if I'm qualified for this type of serious strength training. I would like to ask, Ma, can people of all ages benefit from strength training for cognitive health, Ma?
Well, absolutely, because
Okay.
one of the things that they're finding in these different studies that I mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, there is the realization that you don't just suddenly get Alzheimer's. It is something that starts the groundwork for a neurodegenerative disease begins long before it shows up. So it's working its way in your neurological system before you feel the effects or no, or people around you notice that you've changed. So I always tell people, you know, a heart attack doesn't happen at age 50. It starts at age 30. It starts when you become an adult and aren't watching for habits and getting regular checkups and exercising properly and eating right. Alzheimer's at 70 starts at 40.
Mm.
Loss of independence at 80 starts at age 60. It's something that its roots are much earlier than when you actually see it or experience it. So that's my mantra for anyone who's wanting to be healthy long term is don't wait until you start to have heart disease. Don't wait until you start to notice cognitive decline. Don't wait until you're so overweight that it's really, really hard to lose it because of age being a limiting factor for as we get older, you want to start sooner. So I would say it's great for someone of any age to take care of their body, move with grace and strength and balance, feed it healthy foods that your body craves and walk and move every day.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Janet. And some of the listeners might now be interested to, start this um s- strength training, ma. What one piece of advice would you give to someone hesitant to start enough training for their cognitive health, ma?
I would say there's a couple of different ways to go. One would be if you happen to have an old injury of some kind, like you've lived long enough to have, fallen on skis or, turned your ankle or broken a joint or bone because the longer you live, the more bumps and scrapes are along the way. If
Mm.
you have a pre-existing injury of some kind, and especially if it's something that still bothers you, you still kind of protect it and guard it so that you might even have uneven movement patterns because it hurts. I would say go to a physical therapist. A good physical therapist is gold because they can really look at what's going on and start with where you are and help you get stronger and more even. And their job really is to get you to be balanced in on both sides of your body. So if you have a really bad shoulder, to help free it up and make sure that it is really fully functional. So if that's the case, I would start there. If though you don't have any noticeable injuries that are lingering with the after effects with you and you're fairly able to move and perhaps have joined a gym. So you go to the gym and walk on the treadmill and do some stretches on the mat and maybe experiment with some of the machines, but don't really know what you're doing exactly. Or you feel like it's good to do, but I don't even know if I'm doing the right thing. That's very common with people just walking in and wanting to make a change, but really not having the knowledge or the experience of what to do. I always tell people because I'm in Arizona. And so obviously not everybody can come to Arizona to train with me. So you need to find a trainer. Then what you want to do is go to your gym and go at a time of day when you are going to be there anyway, so that you can see what trainers are working on the floor with clients and walk on the treadmill and watch the trainers. Watch how they interact with their client. Are they paying close attention? Are they, kneeling down with them to help them get their form just right? Or are they staring at their phone and scrolling while their client is performing an exercise and not watching their form? So you want to be very discerning. You're shopping. You're basically shopping for a high quality person. So watch how they treat people when they don't realize they're being watched, and just sort of get an idea of a person that you think I could probably work with them. Look at how they're treating that person who's close to my age. Look at how attentive they are, or look at how dismissive they are and how bored they look. And so you can pick someone and then just ask them, just walk up and ask them about it. And you can get a trainer and just do a short-term commitment of a month or two and train with them. So I think that that's, not speaking to a person face to face about this, but just kind of
Mhm.
giving general advice. That's a good place to start.
Yes, ma. I completely agree. Thank you so much, Mrs. Janet. And lastly, there's a question I normally ask, ma. From the ancestors, from the forefathers, there are a lot of things that exist during our ancestral time that is missing in our time today. If there is anyone or anything you would like to bring back to our time today, what do you think that thing would be, ma?
Oh, do you mean practices and beliefs from the past that are still
Yes, ma.
valuable that we've left by the wayside?
Exactly.
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think one of the things that would be very helpful is, well, part of it is that we've become a very sedentary society. We have so many conveniences and labor-saving devices that keep us not moving as much, whether it's, we don't walk to the store. If you live in a suburban or even in an urban environment, we don't walk to the store and buy the day's groceries and walk home unless we live in a place where that is still the custom. Having those habits of walking places and not just driving all the time, if you possibly can. That's one thing right away that is very desirable. And also spending time outside. Spending time outside can be a really valuable way to leave technology behind for a small period of time, being out in nature, breathing the air, appreciating the wildlife, looking at the plants and the trees and the sky, and just breathing and walking in nature. It does an amazing amount of good for our well-being, for our own human nature of wanting to reconnect with the way it used to be, where we were so in touch with the world around us, and now everything is so fast, and we're a little bit disconnected because we stay behind our screens. And so that's one. And then the other is make sure that you form a community, be a part of a community. So, and by that I mean make sure that you are around people face to face as much as possible, because we become very isolated in this modern age. So if you love reading, join a book club. If you love a sport, whether it's pickleball or tennis or hiking or walking or riding a bike, join a club that does that. Become a part of it. I mean, for some people, it's church, the church community, or some people it's maybe a volunteer organization where you can contribute. You can volunteer for an animal care center or maybe to be able to help out. Like just yesterday, I visited a memory care facility and found out that they have classes there where they do little exercises, they paint, they sing, and they have, so all of these people who have cognitive decline and neurodegenerative diseases come there and have friends and have conversation and sit together and drink a coffee.
Mm.
And it's just, we need each other. We need each other so much. And so that's the other thing that I would recommend.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mrs. Janet. I completely agree. Physical connection really speaks more well, than, more higher distance connection. Having
Yeah,
physical connection really, really, it really helps someone emotionally, physically. It's really helped. Thank you so much, Mrs. Janet. I want
you're
to
welcome.
sincerely thank you, Mrs. Janet, for speaking on this strength training that really helps the cognitive health. Thank you so much, Mrs. Janet.
Thank you, Temi. It was my pleasure, and I really enjoyed speaking with you today.
All right, ma. Bye bye.
Bye bye.